Okay, great. Let me just double check that we hit record and we're ready to go.
I'm recording.
We're recording, great, thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jed Levine. I am now the President Emeritus of CaringKind and the Director of External Relations, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. I first of all want to thank Linda Centeno and Julie Wang for providing the technical support and helping to produce this webinar this afternoon, and couldn't do it without them, so thank you very much. And a couple of housekeeping reminders. One, we are recording the session, so if you are uncomfortable with that, you can just turn your camera off, but keep on if you want to. That's fine. We will keep this on our website, and we will also post it on our YouTube channel. We'll do a little editing at some point. And so we'll have it available for friends and family who want to see this, who were not able to join us this afternoon. Also, we are trying, and I need to slow down because we are doing closed captioning, and so we need to speak slowly and clearly, and so that the closed captioning can automatically provide that for us. If that does not work, we'll try and do it in post-production later on. I'm not sure that we can, but we'll do our best. It's the first time we're trying this. It worked this morning and it worked just before we started today, so our fingers are crossed. For those of you who are not familiar with CaringKind, I encourage you to visit our website at www.caringkindnyc.org to learn more about our services, most of which are free for individuals with dementia and their families, or simply call our helpline at 646-744-2900. I'm hearing some feedback here. So if somebody is on both audio and video at the same time or has called in, yeah, okay, so I think everybody is now muted, which is good. So CaringKind is New York's, I think, trusted resource for dementia and dementia care support. And we've been providing information and guidance and help for over 40 years. And as I said, all of our services are free of charge to family caregivers and people with the disease. And we can only do that thanks to the generosity of our donors and supporters. And in that vein, I want to express our gratitude to the Halis family for their loyal and generous support of this annual event, the Loraine Halis Lecture on the Art and Science of Caregiving. We started this series many years ago as a way of bringing the same attention and having serious discourse on the issues of caregiving, similar to the kinds of things that we do around scientific research and medicine. So we have a library of past events on our YouTube channel, and you're welcome to take a look at that. And now I'd like to introduce Doreen Skolnick, daughter of Loraine Halis, to give a few words of welcome. Doreen?
Yes. Hi, Jed. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. For all of us here and everyone listening, this is such a strange time. Everyone here is dealing with the impossible double whammy of living through this COVID crisis and caring for somebody with Alzheimer's. My 91-year-old mother-in-law lives in a senior complex where, in normal times, they have communal dining, host of other activities, and lots of things to keep them busy. When the world changed in March, all the activities stopped. Meals are now brought to the room. My mother-in-law, who is amazingly alert, views her residence now as a penitentiary. She is remarkable as she is totally cognitively alert and more on social media than the rest of us, which has made it even harder as she is so aware of what she cannot do. We have had many family discussions and made comments that maybe it'll be easier if she were pleasantly confused. And I thought about my mother, who this lecture was named for. My mother died 7 years ago. We had the periods of pleasant confusion to the periods with minimal response. And through it all, it was never an option not to have her as part of every family event, celebration, and holiday. This week begins the Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah. I took my mother to the synagogue every year on the high holidays.
I'll call you later.
Even technology, even when my mother could not communicate. The music, the setting, the customs, all were part of trying to keep her connection to life. She heard the music deep inside her core, music that was part of her life since she was just a child. Her body swayed in time, and out of that place inside her that was deeper than the disease, somehow, miraculously, words and melody came out, not even from her mouth, but from her very being. So even when it felt like she could no longer connect, we kept trying to connect her to the her who had been. We wanted her to celebrate every holiday, every ritual, and we always saw a flicker in her eyes. At my daughter's wedding, I had to have my mother there. It was very important to me. She was dressed up, looked great, pampered, and was there for all the preparation. Although she could no longer communicate, she was there listening, taking in all the sights and sounds. Upon her return to our house, she kept on her special dress for hours and did not want to take it off. So, is it easier if our loved ones are confused during this pandemic time? Personally, I never accepted the confusion as a reason not to just keep trying. And that is why particularly today's discussion is so important, and I am so excited about it. I want to thank everyone from CaringKind and Jed and my family and the brother and sister-in-law who have endowed this very special afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Loraine. Let me remind you that if you have comments or I see some people are already using the chat box, which is great. We'll be doing some interactive exercises and there'll be an opportunity to do that in the chat box as well. And I've asked Ed Chiswick, Dr. Ed Chiswick, one of our senior staff, to help monitor the chat box and let me know if there are any questions. And we'll try to get to as many as we can. So let me introduce Anne Basting and today's program. So first of all, I really wish we could all be there together in a room, exciting and face to face, and feeling the energy of being in the room together and anticipating this event. But we will make this work virtually as best we can. So Anne, I want to congratulate you on the publication of your book, Creative Care. Let me just give a little bit of a background of who Anne Basting is. Anne is a theater artist, a scholar, and an educator committed to the power of the arts and culture to transform lives as individuals and communities. She is professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and founder and president of the award-winning nonprofit TimeSlips. And I go way back with my TimeSlips. It's a great program. Basting's innovative work as both a community-engaged artist and a scholar has been recognized by a MacArthur Fellowship, those are the Genius Grants, an Ashoka Fellowship, a Rockefeller Fellowship, and multiple major grants. She is author and editor of multiple books, including her latest, Creative Care, a revolutionary approach to dementia and elder care. I am delighted to welcome Anne Basting to the program, and as I said, I wish we could be together and having this dialogue in person, but we'll make this work. In your book, you open with a sentence, excuse me, that you walked into a nursing home and your life was changed. Interesting, because very parallel to my own experience. I was 17 years old. I was a theater history and dramatic literature major at NYU, and that brought me to my first nursing home at the age of 17 and set me on a path that we're now 50 years later, and I'm still learning about and impressed with the role of the creative arts in transforming the lives of older adults and those who think differently, including those who Stephen Post, a bioethicist, who was actually one of our first speakers in this lecture series, calls the deeply forgetful. So I think we'd start with a question about, you call the book Creative Care, a revolutionary approach to dementia and elder care. What is revolutionary about this approach?
Well, first of all, let me just say it's a delight to be here with everybody. It's just a joy, and the burst of creativity that has come out in this moment of COVID, where we are faced with so many obstacles, and we're finding ways to breach the barriers and connect with each other. One of them is Zoom. And I think one of the challenges is figuring out how to use this system. So I'm going to take everybody on a tour down to the lower left-hand part of your screen where you see a little microphone. And if everybody could click on that microphone so that it says mute, and it's so that you see a little red thing with a line through it. Because especially people with hearing aids, it's going to drive you crazy to hear background noise all during this time. So you can come off and on mute, but really for a webinar with this many, we can just use the chat. That'll be great. The revolutionary thing about creative care is that the world sees care as predicated on loss. And I think, as hard as it is, and I know there's a lot of family caregivers, probably even people living with cognitive disabilities on the call, there are moments where it is not all loss. There are moments that can be joyful and meaningful and powerful in the journey through this experience. What creative care does is create a language and tools to create those moments together and to share them publicly so that the world knows that they shouldn't be afraid of connecting with us. Mm-hmm. People are hesitant around loss and disability. They don't know how to engage with grief and loss. So people stay away. Yeah, people have probably experienced that with friendships. And so part of creative care is trying to tell the world there's meaning here, there is beauty here, there is joy here. Stay connected with us. Come be part of this journey. Don't be afraid of it. It's not saying it is all joy. We know that is not the case. It is challenging, but it is meaningful. There can be meaning made along the way. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're turning to a place that's really interesting in this moment of COVID, where we're remembering our frailties and our vulnerabilities. They're being shown to us so clearly, and that the need for meaning making the reason why we're protecting our lives. What is the meaning that those tools are there? And I was really nervous about bringing this book out in May, which is when it came out. But I really felt like the tools inside of it are what we need now more than ever. So I was really happy for that.
I totally agree. And I think that there's, you have a kind of a premise that we're not just our cognitive selves, that there's an emotional, a spiritual, a creative, an artistic part of every human being. And we can tap into that to connect in a way that allows us to see the person with dementia in a different light, and for them to perhaps see themselves, if not consciously, but at least to experience themselves as something a little bit more than the frustration, the cognitive loss, the memory loss, the functional changes, all of those things.
Yes, and I think when you think about the arts, they are an emotional and symbolic language. I have worked with people way down beyond any kind of language, and there's a whole chapter, 2 chapters here about people who really have no language or great difficulty with language of any kind. And instead we use movement, and we made such beautiful work together that I think we can use the creative language. We can start using it as children. We can use it and hone our skills and feel comfortable using that language our whole lives. And then there might come a point where it's the only language we have. So it's about teaching each other how to use that language for meaning making all across our lives. If you're game, I have a little section that I think speaks really perfect to that point in your question that I can read that sort of shares that a little bit. So here it is. When I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, I would play outside for as long as I could. I remember there was a row of bushes down the hill along the side of our house. One of my favorite games was to burst through 2 of those bushes and into the open field next door. Each time I did it, I imagined a different location in the world with a different sick animal that needed my attention, that needed my help. Boom! I was on the savannah in Africa tending to a sick giraffe. Boom! Alaska, rushing to the aid of a wounded otter. Boom! The North Woods of Wisconsin, where a porcupine badly needed my attention. When I came inside from playing, my mom, I imagine her at the kitchen sink fixing dinner, would simply ask me, "Which animals did you help today?" My mother, who loved gardening, hiking, painting, and writing, and at this point in the book, you know that she also has dementia. And I ask myself, what questions will I ask her? What questions will draw on who she is and invite her creativity? Imagination can transport and transform us, individually in relationship to each other and in our communities. Yet so much talk about creativity can intimidate. When I ask people whether they are creative, as I have done in workshops for years, 9 times out of 10, they back away with an apologetic, "I can't draw," or "I can't sing anymore." This might happen because being creative is seen as something someone says about you, like being handsome or clever, not something someone claims about themselves. But it is also possible that somewhere along the line, creativity has become a rare currency, a precious attribute associated with the few, the elite, the artist, the tech startup CEO. It is my aim to bring creativity back home where it belongs, back into the micro moments of our days when we can make meaning simply by noticing the angle of light as it pours through a window, the pattern of vowels on a billboard, the overlapping rhythms of music and fingers tapping on a keyboard in a waiting room. It is my aim to remind us that human beings are innately creative, and that inviting our fellow human beings to express themselves creatively, to co-create, is itself an act of care, an expression of love.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. And I think the fact that you're talking about co-creating here as well, that it's not just for the person with dementia, but that there is a role that can address, I think, the experience, the emotional experience, the painful experience, the frustrating and the sadness that happens when you are caring for somebody with dementia. And, you know, there's, I think, you know, caring for a relative with cognitive impairment or memory loss has never been easy. And especially now in the pandemic, so many people are feeling trapped, and there always was social isolation, and now it's compounded by the lockdown and the fear of going outside. So how do you see what is the role for creativity in caregiving in this situation? We talked about it a little bit before, but if you could expand on that.
Sure. There's some great research now, and I pepper quite a bit of research throughout the book, that creativity and going into the mode of creative expression reduces stress. And oh my goodness, if this is not a stressful moment, I really don't know what is. There's so much unknown. There is so much anxiety. There is just layer upon layer. And so I've been talking about the beauty of this moment of marrying two things that we know calm us and reduce stress and improve well-being, which is creativity and generosity. And when you bring those two together, you can create a meaningful moment and then turn it outwards and share it with someone else who might be, you know. An example that I use is with my own mom, sitting at the table and just picking up a piece of fruit and saying, "What do you see? Let's write on an index card 3 words that come to mind with this apple." And we'll write it down, we'll smell it, we'll, you know, engage senses, and we'll write down the tiniest poem you've ever read, which is just, it's even shorter than haiku. It's just 3 words in a row. And then we'll draw a little picture of the apple, and then we'll send it to my sister as a postcard and say, "I hope this brightens your day. Here's a poem about an apple." As a gift. Creativity as a, there's a whole group of writers who talk about creativity as being part of the gift economy. It's actually sort of operates outside of the regular capitalist economy as part of the gift. And one of the things that I think comes from this picturing of this weird model that we have about care and even our healthcare systems as being about loss and about protecting and caring for people, is that we lose the ability to turn around and be generous to others. And to help others. And so exercising both creativity and generosity and turning ourselves outward calms and reduces stress and creates meaning and connects us with a sense of belonging to the larger world.
Lovely. And I think actually now might be a good time to demonstrate that. Let me just say that for those of you who don't already follow Anne on Facebook, that during the and I'm not sure if you're still doing it, but there were wonderful, wonderful exercises that you led us through daily. It's very, you know, you just needed a piece of paper or an index card, a marker or a pen, and they were creative, and they were a little moment of escape from, I think, this general kind of this low level and sometimes higher level anxiety that we're all feeling. And what I've heard somebody talk about is just the pandemic trauma, that the fact that we're all traumatized by this, and that I think especially for caregivers of people with dementia, all of their stresses are exaggerated, and it's so much more difficult than it's been. I was wondering if you could lead us in a brief creative exercise, and then we'll get on to some more discussion.
Sure. When you asked me to do that for this talk, I was like, oh gosh, I have too many. What would I possibly pick? And I'll say there's Anne Basting, the public figure page. I put all those videos up there. So you could, and they're, those came about because I hit bottom. I was you know, with the nonprofit I work with TimeSlips, we've been doing all these programs and seeing such amazing impact that when COVID struck and the care communities where we were doing a lot of work essentially became prisons very quickly. Families were locked out. There was a lot of fear and despair that we were witnessing and hearing about. And I was like, what can I do to help that and to help myself? And it was like, every day I can just do this tiny creative thing, this minute creative thing. And that helped me a lot. And I did it for 40 days. I got to 40 and I was like, I think I'm done. But there are 40 short little videos on that Facebook page. And I'm trying to also bring them into the TimeSlips website as well, which I'll also say is a huge resource for people, timeslips.org. And there's under the resource tab, you'll see the Creativity Center. And there's hundreds of prompts there that people can use and download for free, download little worksheets. It's really there for exactly this reason, to give a little tiny creative exercise that you can access whenever you need it.
Let me say that we will be adding that link to our website at caringkindnyc.org. And if you go there, you'll see a COVID-19 resources. And we also have a set of activity videos that Nancy Henley, one of our trainers, put together. Simple activities with materials that you can find around the house, that you can do with your person with dementia, or that they can do alone, and that you can get a little break from that caregiving. And I think that's one of the real challenges for caregivers at this time is, what do I do with this person? I can't go out to the senior center, the day programs are closed. We do have our Connect to Culture programs, which are online, so people can go for a tour of the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens in the spring, which was gorgeous, or visit some of the museums, or attend a concert with New York Pops or Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, many of our cultural partners. So all of that's available. So we'll add the TimeSlips materials to our website as well. So thank you for that.
And someone just asked what the exact Facebook page is, so I'm gonna find it and put it in the chat for you for that. So that'll be coming. Hang on. Come back to Zoom and pop that in the chat. Got to do it to everyone, not just Linda. There you go. So here's the activity. Are you ready? If people have a little piece of paper, there's two parts to this. One is without words and one is with words. So one of the things I love to do with activities that we design is have them help us imagine our space a little differently. And I'm in the middle of working up a project that's like, if people ever saw the movie Beauty and the Beast, how the teapot comes alive and all those things come alive. So we're going to create stories out of objects in our houses. It's going to be kind of fun. But anyway, so look around your room, wherever you are, and find an object that reminds you of the feeling of love, or just positive, something that you love or is a symbol of that in some way. It can be tiny, it can be big, doesn't matter. You don't have to pick it up and move it and show it or anything. Just what is that thing? And for me, I bring my giant coffee mug to show you. It's huge. It has a huge handle. I can get my whole hand in, which I love. And it was also the last gift my mother gave me. So far, she may still give me many more gifts, but it was the last tangible gift she gave me. So think of that object, if you have that. If you can see it, it's even better. Take your finger, little finger wag. There you go. I see people's fingers. It's great. Outline the shape of that object. Just outline it. Just outline it. It's really easy. I like to say, if you can imagine your favorite song playing while you do this, that's helpful. Think of the chaos if we all played music right now. It would be terrible. Okay, now take your hand and do the same thing. Okay, just outline that shape however you want to. All right, one more layer here. You ready? Kind of lean into it a little bit and kind of use your upper body and maybe your arm instead of just your hand, right? So you can see me, I'm going around the rim. All right. So we just created the dance of the object we love. If I would have said we're going to dance, a lot of you would have turned off your cameras and probably walked away. But it's super simple when you just begin with an outline of an object, and it's very soothing, right? I can see some of you guys still moving, and it just fills you with a little bit of calm. Now for the word part, if you could just write down the first 3 words that come to mind. It can be the color, the shape, the meaning, anything about that object. And write those down, and then when you're done with it, if you want to write it in the chat, and you can write, if you want to write the name of the object, you can do that, and then the 3 words that follow. All right, here's mine. Letter opener from Venice. That's awesome. And then be sure to put your 3 words in there. So mine were big green mug, warm, round, mom. My daughter's picture, comfort, safe, soothing. Mont Blanc pen, words, knowledge, exquisite. That's great. Ceramic bird, oh, they're going so fast I can't read them. Stone heart, wooden dog figurine, friend, loyalty, confidence. Aloe vera plant, soothing, green spikes. Tiny, see, we could actually create a whole book of these poems. It's just great. Blue Paris Cafe, Elizabeth, that's great. It intrigued me into what the object was. Mug with pictures of my grandchildren on it. Decorative cross, love is eternal. Bottle of water, refreshing, purity, clarity. So creativity, as you can see, little bite-sized, totally innate. And the book is just full of, the opening section, I should say, is how I got into this. Everybody always asks me that, so I thought I would finally answer it. like the story with Jed, we have a lot of parallels in our coming to this field in this way. The second breaks it into elements of how to practice it. And then each chapter ends with guidance of how to do this at home. And then the third section is, what if we actually infused this practice into our care systems? How could we actually transform the way we care in this country? And so there's stories about projects that I've done that try to do that through Meals on Wheels, adult day programs, large projects in a single continuing care retirement community, and then to most recently with a project that I just completed in Kentucky, where we rewrote the story of Peter Pan together with 12 rural nursing homes across the state of Kentucky, all solidly Medicaid, really essentially transforming them from stigmatized health centers focused on protection and maintenance of the body into really vibrant cultural centers where, as I said to them, beauty and joy are made here every day. Beauty and meaning are made here every day.
And you write about one of those in one of the productions in the book, which is just charming in the sense of the other comment I had, and I want people to reflect on and to recognize, is that by doing this, they're not only caring for the person that they're caring for, but by doing exercises like this, they're really caring for themselves. And I think if you could talk a little bit about, as caregivers, caregivers have a range of feelings. Often they're, it's profound love and devotion to the person they care for. Sometimes it's completely the opposite, depending upon the relationship. And there's often, very profound fear and feelings of, can I do this? Can I manage the frustration and the guilt and the anger sometimes that pops up, which is a normal part of it. So how can creative activities or creative experiences, either with the person with dementia or simply for yourself, and I think giving that as a gift to yourself is a really wonderful thing. How can that process help caregivers kind of process those feelings and use that as a tool? And then how do you build that into your already so busy day?
Yeah. I think that's why the elements of it are super helpful. It almost puts it into a ritualized structure. Mm-hmm. The elements that I talk about are yes and, which is the core of improvisation. And right. Improvisation, I think, has been increasingly becoming a tool of care in care settings. So I know friends who teach it in medical schools and in hospitals now as a way for doctors to learn to engage better with their patients. Essentially, the yes and says, I'm observing everything in this moment and I accept it, which can be very hard. That's not easy. So you accept what's right in front of you. You see it, you're listening, you're hearing, you're noticing, and I'm going to figure out how to add to it in a positive way. It's not yes, but. It's not yes, no. It's yes, and. That is super radical in this situation where we're trying to refine behavior or redirect or do all things like that. And it can be very challenging, but when you learn to practice it, I think it essentially brings you into that moment and into the place and the perspective of the person who's with you, right? And that's how you create a shared moment. The second one is how to ask a beautiful question. And I used to call them open-ended questions, but number one, that's a little boring and not very poetic. And two, it's an art to figure out how to ask these questions. And so there's a beauty to it. So I call them now beautiful questions. And a beautiful question is the one that opens up that moment to a shared discovery. There's usually no right or wrong answer to a beautiful question, but one that opens up your own learning and the other person's learning and expression at the same time. So that gets to the reciprocal part of how this can open up the moment to both of you. That has been for me with my mom's journey into dementia. The most moving thing for me is to observe my father. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do the work I've been coaching people through for the last 30 years with my own mom. But my father has shown me that he's been listening and is doing it beautifully. He's really pretty amazing. So an example of that is that he spent all this time and arranged for him and my mom to go out to dinner, which some of you know can be challenging, with friends. And they did it. They had a wonderful time. The friends were very supportive. They had a great meal. They got home. And mom got anxious and she was like, I need to set the table. I have to, and he was devastated because he had worked very hard to arrange that dinner and they had a delightful time and it was gone, right? Clearly she didn't remember eating. And he said, he paused and he said, "Do you feel hungry?" And she said, "No, we ate, didn't we?" He said, "Yes, we did. And it was beautiful. And then it was a shared moment of recollection because he could have taken a very different approach to that moment, right?
Don't you remember we ate, we went out, we had a great time.
Exactly. Yeah. And so he's become, it brings me to tears because I say, "God, you're so good at this." And he goes, I've just read your stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. Thank you for that gift. And he's gotten really good at it. So the third part, another element is called proof of listening, which is, again, people often use the phrase active listening, but to me, that's like too conceptual. Offering someone proof tells me kind of what to do. Like I write down what they're saying. I make sure they know that they're being heard and that I'm trying to learn what they're saying and what they're trying to express to me. So I'm repeating it to make sure I'm getting it right. I might write it down and let them correct me. I'm offering them proof that they're being heard. And this came out of 25 years of experience of people stopping, editing themselves into silence out of fear of saying the wrong thing, and realizing that offering this kind of laboratory for communication, expression, experimentation is encouraging the person to try to express themselves through whatever means that they have. And there's actually a chapter, Elizabeth is on the webinar, I tell the story of being in very early on a session that she was a part of in New York at a day program, where there was a woman who only had sounds. She had the words ba, 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 ba. And every time we would try to shape a story in this improvisational storytelling process, she would offer ba, 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 ba. And so we would echo, we would say, we had a picture of, I don't know, a horse and a cowboy. What do you want to name the horse? Ba, 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 ba. Okay, I would repeat, I would say ba, 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 ba. Trying to get the urgency and the intention. I think Susan, there you go, thank you. So that she knew, I knew I was getting it right. And it didn't happen miraculously the first couple of times of repeating it, but eventually after a couple of stories, she said, I said, what do you want to name this person in the story? And she said, ba, 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 Dorothy, ba, ba, ba. So she started inserting words inside the sounds. You could tell she was pushing herself to experiment with communication. And I echoed it. First of all, we were floored. I echoed it and said, ba, 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 Dorothy, ba, ba, ba. And she said, she grabbed my hands and she said, ba, 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 I love you, ba, ba, ba. And it was like, okay. And you're realizing that just listening and repeating is one of the most powerful tools that we have for each other to confirm and express. And you let go of the sort of the instrumental component of communication and realize that there's so much happening, and inviting that person to use all the components of expression that they have. Now that said, there's a lot of moments where you need communication to be instrumental, and that's challenging. But when you train yourself in this other way, you can use it even in those instrumental moments. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jed.
I think even if she didn't say those words,
yeah,
the fact that you were listening and reflecting is such an affirmation of her personhood.
Yeah.
But I think that you could, if you are patient and you persist, you might get those really fabulous responses.
Yeah.
And certainly music and lyrics, people retain that in a way that's embedded deeply in the brain. So we can use music and movement as a way to elicit those kinds of responses. But
yeah.
I think it's a beautiful story. And let me tell you, it takes a lot of patience, and an exhausted caregiver might not have the patience to do that. But but go ahead.
I was going to say, there's something about calling it the creative process, which creativity, the definition is adding something new to the world that has value. And feeling, that's also what we were trying to create with TimeSlips, was this whole network of people that are doing it, and a place to share what comes out of your engagement, so that they feel like they have meaning and can be shared with others for their meaning. That when you somehow, that framework makes you look at those moments differently and feel those moments a little differently for being generative and creating something together. That you, there's Mahali Csikszentmihalyi has a theory called flow, that when you get into a state of creative flow, you lose track of time. And it's, again, that stress relieving component. So that can be what's nurturing to the caregiver.
Absolutely. And I think, there was the question earlier on about if you're dealing with somebody who thinks that these kinds of creative activities or arts-based activities are that their person they're caring for might think that they are silly or for children. How do you approach that? How do you get past that barrier?
I think that's actually pretty common, and I think it comes out of protecting who the person was, and it's a noble impulse to do. That can also be why we keep trying to go back to the past and the shared memories, to rebuild the person as we knew them. And the metaphor I've used is that when you rebuild and you're trying to rebuild that person as they were, you end up with this nice, if you do it kind of brick by brick, fact by fact. The person was this, they wouldn't want to do this, you end up with this brick wall between you and the person as they are now. And you can't reach a person through a brick wall. You have to embrace where they are now. And every invitation for creative expression is an open invitation. they may say no. That's fine. I say never stop inviting, because if you do, you're saying it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Think of another way to reframe a question. Invite the person. An example I give is just, a prompt can be looking out the window. And it doesn't have to be a sing-song activity that you're directing a person through. I think the childlike component is that they don't have choice. They don't find meaning in it because they're not engaging in self-expression or find it pleasurable. But if you're just even looking out the window and say, gosh, what sounds do you imagine outside? And you can imagine sounds together, or what movements do we see? Let's just make them with our finger. Something very low threshold so that it doesn't feel awkward or embarrassing for you or the person. Making yourself vulnerable and contributing your own thoughts and responses can also demonstrate that you're willing to risk creativity, so that they loosen and invite and feel that it's okay to risk that creativity as well. So those are just a few things.
Good suggestions. And I think for some people, if you frame it in a way, people want to have purpose and meaning or to be helpful, many of them, and that if you can frame it in a way that I'd like you to help me with something, and then do whatever the activity is or the exercise is, that it taps into their sense of altruism and and purpose. I think we all need purpose and meaning in our life, so this is a way of tapping into that as well.
I just had a meeting before this with some students. I run a program at the university called the Student Artist in Residence program. So they are embedded in care with care communities and social service agencies over a year to learn how to use creative engagement to build connection and community. And the students are, one of them works with a program for youth with autism. And she is reaching out and bridging with some of the aging care programs, because those kids are really isolated now. And the older adults are living in community. They can only do small groups, but she's in the Student Artist in Residence, and from both programs are helping each other to help the populations of their other groups by doing shared projects. So one was, another similar question to the activity I did, what is something you treasure? And then they're creating treasure maps for the kids, which is just a great thing. So even if it's altruism, I guess what I'm trying to say is the altruism can invite the person to help you, yes, or turn outside to another group that you can turn around and help and sort of animate altruism for people outside your home, which can be helpful for you too.
Yeah, there's a wonderful comment from Liz who says, my mom doesn't like to do things unless she's accomplishing something. So the idea about the drawing of the apple and poem to send to someone as a gift is a great idea.
Yeah.
And,
that actually, that example of that activity came from, I was doing a workshop session once and someone said, I came upon this thing because I get Fruit of the Month Club, and she was a caregiver, a home care worker for a woman who actually lived next door to her. And the daughter sent this Fruit of the Month Club as a way to try to help. And they didn't know, they turned it into an activity. So when the fruit got delivered, they took the postcard from the fruit delivery, wrote a poem about the fruit, and sent it to the daughter as a thank you card.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, so it's just very simple. You have prompts all over your house.
Right. So, I think we have time for one more question, which is from Hazel, who says her spouse is animated only about his hallucinations. So she spends a lot of time asking him about what he sees in his dimension. how does she get him to be articulate about the dimension we share?
That is so challenging. And I wonder if the first step is to say, we want to teach, if you have people in your life that really don't know how to engage with you now, which I'm betting is the case, either in your, I don't know if you live in a building or your family, or let's teach them about your world. So share something, draw a picture, create, use words, something to explore the dimension, to bridge to the people, to teach them about what he's experiencing, or your spouse is experiencing, so that can be a first bridge to that. And I'll say there's a lot of room for abstract art. A lot of the history of art, of painting and conceptual art, comes from this world of hallucinations and different visions. And so that can be used as a bridge into another world. It's a challenge, and I commend you and feel for you in that challenge.
And I'd also say, that often the hallucinations that people with dementia experience are not frightening. They're almost always visual rather than auditory. And so I would be, and it sounds like you're very tolerant of them, which is wonderful. And accepting of them. And as long as the person is not distressed by them, you can kind of balance both. And, getting him involved with something in the here and now, by looking at something, or, doing some of these creative exercises might be a way of getting him into it, but I'm not sure it's always that necessary.
Yeah.
So it's imposing our reality on somebody.
I remember early on reading a story about a nurse who said that a home visit where this gentleman had a persistent hallucination of all things, of flying polar bears, and they were starting to distress him. And so she said, how can we, what makes them go away? Can we make, like, when we try to make bugs go away, we use like spray. Should we make some polar bear spray? And he said, yes. They made a can of polar bear spray, and they sprayed. It was just room freshener. But that was a tool that they used in the moment as a creative solution to that moment. I always remember that story, probably 15 years ago.
That's a creative solution.
Yes.
That's great. Let me, our time is almost up, actually. I can't believe it. If you can let people know where they can purchase this book, and let me say the book is so beautifully written and such a personal story. And I think the fact that it's not academic, it's really your story, and a way of and giving people building the tools so that they can tap into their own creativity. And let me remind everybody that if you are a caregiver, finding time to explore your own creativity. And if you think about what we felt like right after that little exercise, I think people felt engaged and a little like a respite from the world and all the troubles in the world at the moment. And it's healing, and it's restorative, and it's, I think endorphins are flowing in our brains after this. So after that kind of thing. So I encourage people to do that, and then to get the book. But if you can let people know where they can get the book, and thank you.
Sure. I mean, everything's online, right? So you can order it from where you prefer to order books. Bookshop.org. That draws on and supports all independent bookstores. Amazon is still great, especially if you have Prime. And I would say it would be a huge help if you do enjoy the book, to do a little review is always helpful to get it out there. It's a really hard time to get these tools out to the people who really need them. So we can help each other with that. Anne-Basting.com is my website that has a page on creative care, which you can read more about the book there as well. And timeslips.org, again, is the website with the resource page that'll guide you to the Creativity Center. And also just the resource tab has all kinds of videos and webinars for free. I'm working currently on a project in Durham where we did about a dozen 20-minute Zoom sessions that were all creative exercises, very soothing. And those are all videos that you can see there as well. And they all start with a beautiful question. So lots and lots of tools for you. And also just TimeSlips is also creating a lot more support materials for family and friends. And so you'll see a lot more things on the site in the coming several months as those come online. A training, and then something we call our engagement party system. And also the same publisher of the book is coming out with an imagination kit in the next year. So those will all be available for you all.
So, you know, I want to thank you, Anne. This was really, really wonderful. I knew the time would fly, and you do have a lot of wisdom to share. And I encourage everybody to, actually, Linda, if you can put up the last slide for us, to again, reach out to CaringKind through our helpline at 646-744-2900 to learn more about our programs of care and support. We have over 90 support groups. We do a lot of education, wonderful family caregiver workshops where we incorporate some of these creative activities. And there are, you know, multiple programs that I think will be really helpful. So I want to invite you all to participate in our CaringKind Alzheimer's Walk this year, which is going to be on October 11th. Anne just signed up as a walker and supporter, and she'll be walking in Milwaukee. And then, you know, to create your team and support CaringKind. We need your support. We are 95% privately funded. So all these dollars go to help provide these free services for persons with dementia and their caregivers. And you can simply go to our website at caringkindnyc.org. You'll see the walk banner and just register there. If you need help, just contact the helpline and we'll get somebody to let you know, to help you with that. And with that, I want to again thank Doreen Skolnick and the Halis family for their support of this lecture. And this was simply, simply wonderful. I think, you know, I hope everybody got something out of it. I know I certainly did.
Well, it was a joy to be here and also to share in this with you, Jed. We go back 20-some years, so yes, it's a treat. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon, and be well.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.